People with home security cameras. What's the creepiest thing you've ever seen happen while you were asleep? We bought a new house about 8 months ago and installed security cameras recently. I looked over footage to see if it was working properly and didn't want to believe what I found. At around 3 AM there was a random guy that was briskly walking in and out of my driveway and kept shifting around. He looked as if he needed to find something. He goes over to one of the bushes on the side. It represents the barrier line and takes a crap. A freaking crap. I had to replay it a couple times to make sure I was seeing this correctly. Then I thought, is that thing still there? Turns out it was still in the shrub. Guess it was his housewarming gift. He was walking up and down your driveway, trying to decide if he should knock on your door and ask to use the bathroom. Finally, the urge got too strong and he said, frick it, this thing's coming now. Splat. Indecision strikes again. I saw someone break into my car, take my sweater out of the front seat, stood there and smelled it for a solid 5-10 minutes, then put it back and left. I gave that sweater away that day. Fell asleep on the couch that night. Had a bad incident of sleep paralysis. Watched the playback a few hours later of me trying to pull myself out of it. With the night vision being engaged, it looks really creepy because eyes glow combined with the slow blinking during the event. It's like watching a zombie version of yourself. I fixed my sleep paralysis by taking deeper and deeper breaths when I'm trying to wake up. Hope that helps you. I wasn't asleep, but it was 1 AM. Both my Ring cameras go off, which, because of how they're angled, means only a full-sized adult can be in my yard. I check the notification. Dude starts walking up the sidewalk to my yard. Camera with floodlight kicks on. Dude instantly turns around like he was mistaken and goes onto the neighbor's yard. Neither us nor the neighbor knew him. Shady. Mostly I just get videos of cats visiting though. INB4 your house gets ransacked by midgets. I wake up at 6 AM and just go through my security camera before heading to work. One day while looking through, I just saw my dog staring directly at my room. Skimmed through the different timelines. He did that for 30 minutes. Not sure why. Probably had to take a pee. A couple who would drive by at random hours of the day for a full week would walk up to the house and look at my dogs. Pit bulls. Look into each window in the front and even check the back gate fence. The camera was older and had no notifications, so the only way we knew was the moment they decided to open up the door. While I was homesick and was subsequently rushed by my dogs, I heard the commotion and grabbed the only weapon I had, a bat, to find the front door open and what looked like a murder scene in my living room. Blood everywhere, all over the floor, the front door, the little entranceway, the window. Turns out I have two very good ones. The idiots went to the hospital to eventually be caught by police. They were going to take my dogs to be in dogfights, involved in a bunch of other seedy things, drugs, prostitution. Wanted a dogfight, got a dogfight. I got a security camera to keep tabs on my sick cat. The first day I swear every time I connected she turned and stared directly at the camera. There is probably a light that goes on when it turns on. I know some cams have this. Or she can hear the electronics go on. It might be something you can't hear. I installed some security cameras after some altercations with a horrible neighbor. Most I'd see was a squirrel, maybe a raccoon or two. Saw a fox once. That was cool. One night, I saw a guy walking up and down the street, passing my house over and over again. He seemed to limp more and more with each pass, before he collapsed. Later found out that guy was on a massive drug trip, and he died there, on the sidewalk, in front of my house. There was blood on that patch for weeks. When I lived with my dad, he once had this ambitious raccoon that discovered he never locked the doggy door. So the raccoon would come in, eat a bunch of crap, and run away before we'd wake up. So he put an automated doggy door in so it only works if my dog went near it with a collar designed to open it. Wasn't asleep, but when I lived with my ex, we had a few security cameras and they send you alerts when there's motion detected. I was at work and got an alert that there was motion in the living room and I figured it was my ex coming home early, but I checked it anyway. Instead, I saw my dog standing in the middle of the living room staring at the wall. He stood there for a minute and then got on the sofa to sleep. Two things were terrifyingly off about that. 1. My dog was a puppy at the time and was crated when home alone. The crate is made of solid wood, metal grates and has thick and heavy eye hook latches, so there's no conceivable way he could have opened the door. 2. He was kept in the office, which is located off the hall, and we kept the door separating the living room from the hall closed during the day to keep the room cooler for him. I looked back at the recording because I was very confused, and unfortunately, because the hall door was closed, I couldn't see how his crate got opened. But the hall door opened on its own and he walked out into the living room about 30 seconds later. The hall door was like a regular bedroom door. It closed with a knob latch and wouldn't have opened even if you pushed on it. There were no sounds aside from the normal house noises. No cars or people had been in view of the outside cameras since we'd left, and no other motion detections had went off. Frick that. We caught a neighbor who stole a package off our front porch that UPS had dropped off. It was an expensive car part. IDK what kind. My husband is a car nut. He was very quick to give it back when the police showed up at his door, because my husband wanted his car stuff rather than press charges and have it go to evidence. I used to work for a company in California. Pretty small office just off the side of the road. Lots of gang activity around the area. They've got the Ring doorbell camera so they can safely tell if they can open the door at night. One night there's a group of guys hanging around looking at our property. We don't think much of it because they leave in about 10 minutes. Next day a guy shows up and just walks into our fabrication shop in broad daylight looking around. Never has this happened before. Our boss intervenes immediately. Boss, can I help you? Guy, oh crap, hey there. Hey, are you guys hiring? Boss, number. You have 5 seconds to frick off. Guy leaves in a mad dash. We called the cops and they find him walking down the street 5 minutes later. Turns out the gang was planning on robbing our facility while we were on holiday leave, and they'd assigned him to scout out the interior. He was obviously brilliant at reconnaissance. I live in an apartment unit right next door to the office. They installed a new security camera for their door which covers a part of mine as well shortly after I moved in. The office manager knocked on my door a few days after the install and asked me to come look at something. She pulled up footage of the night before that showed a guy pacing in front of my door for 6 hours. He even left for a couple minutes and came back with something he tried to stick in my door frame a few times. I was asleep the whole time and heard nothing. Turned out to be a recent ex of a friend of mine. I'd only met him once. Still have no idea how he knew where I lived unless he followed her to my place once, as we lived close by each other. Cops called, reports filed. They eventually found him. He had been on a pretty bad drug bend since their breakup from what I heard and has no recollection of being there. M is a hell of a drug. When I was a poor college student, my wealthy cousin and his wife went on vacation and offered to let me house sit to give me a break from my 3 slovenly roommates. They live a few towns over in a very nice house with a huge front lawn and a fancy, tall iron fence and double gates. The fence and gates are about 11 feet high. You have to have a remote to open the gates. That first night I slept so well. I breakfasted like a king and then drove to school. I got back around 5, made a supper fit for a king, and settled down to write an econ paper. My cousin has a warning system for when someone drives, turns off the road and comes up to the gate. There's a chiming sound and you can look at screens in a couple of different rooms to see who it is so that you can buzz them in. I was deep into my paper when I heard the chime. I was confused at first and checked my phone before I realized what it was. I looked from the sofa and could see a movement on the security screen. I stood up and got closer and had a clear view of 2 women getting out of a white car. One tried to squeeze between 2 bars of the gate. Impossible. And then the other woman tried to boost her over the top of the gate. Hilarious. The top one fell, and even from the house I could hear swearing. I was about to press the intercom button and ask WTF was their problem, but I was chuckling at their antics and so just watched silently. They peered at the house intently from between the bars like a couple of jailbirds for a while. The skinnier one actually stripped down to her bra and panties and tried to squeeze through the bars again. No dice. Butt and boobs were not allowing that to happen. More swearing. Then as the skinny one got dressed again, the bigger one went back to her trunk and got out a fricking tire iron. As soon as she started fricking with the hinges of the gate, I was on 911. The cops took too long and the women left. I showed the cops the video but they couldn't get a license plate number. When my cousin and his wife returned the next week I told them what happened and we watched the tape. He said that he had no idea who the women were but his wife looked pee. I packed up, thanked them for my vacation and left. She divorced him that summer. I put up a camera in my room to record myself when that was a whole fad. I saw myself kicking and crying in my sleep, legitimate tears and also muttering something. I saw myself reach and grab my hair when I curled into a ball. I don't even remember having a nightmare or anything that night. Definitely a reason to be afraid of myself. That's actually kinda terrifying. I saw this one video of some guy in California that went to this house and spent 2 hours licking their security camera doorbell, disappeared for a bit and then came back to resume the licking of the camera for another hour or so. I woke up one morning and my front door was wide open. Scared the crap out of me but couldn't figure it out as nothing was missing. Went back and looked at my camera and it turns out at around 4 AM the door just swings open for no reason. Never figured out why. Ghost wanted out. So I'm sitting in my living room at night. Just recently moved into my new flat. I'm in a basement flat, own entrance, in a little townhouse on the edge of town. Quiet area, lots of trees, cheap rent and like no public transport or cell reception. I'm living alone for the first time. I just set up the security cameras and hooked them up to a new monitor. The old one was ancient and gigantic. Hadn't figured out where to put the monitor. I'd never had a security system before. It was, at the time, on my work desk, which was at the living room window. I notice this slight yellow glow out the window out the corner of my eyes, slowly getting brighter. As it does, I notice on the camera that there's a huge bus shadow cast across my door, visible from camera, to the left of the window, that looks kinda animal but weird proportions. I quietly crap myself. It sits there for a while, like a good 10 minutes, moving just enough to make me wonder if I'm imagining it moving. There's a kind of whining buzzing noise, but it's faint and I might be imagining it. I suddenly find religion. Then all of a sudden there's a loud pop from inside my building. The glow goes instantly away. There's a sound like a really peak at and then really rapid footsteps. I'm in like full cardiac arrest at this point, bathing in my own urine, crying for my mum. Flash forward a week or so. I haven't been eaten by a cat shadow monster, though I do have a sudden new interest in exorcisms. I meet the upstairs neighbors, older couple, when they're having trouble getting a large package up the stairs. They offer me tea as thanks. I notice their cat sitting in the window. Its movement reminds me of something, and after a while I realize it's the shadow monster. I ask a few questions to round out the details. Turns out the neighbors had one of those lights on a sensor which turn on when they detect movement. Cat jumps up to ledge. Light turns on. But it was an eco light, so warmed up slow. It then went out, loudly. I'm too embarrassed relieved to recount the story, so I make my excuses, leaving the nice couple upstairs with the impression that their new downstairs neighbor is a weirdo who stares at cats, has a really keen interest in light bulbs, and a predilection for no. They don't invite me up for tea anymore, but they do ask if I'm okay every time they see me. I quietly crap myself, as a gentleman woman would. My friend showed me footage that her home security camera got of a coked out neighbor running into her door and shattering the glass with his head. The weird part was that he didn't get hurt, smashed the glass but came out without any damages to the head. When he approached her door he stopped for a moment and then charged like a bull. CS a hell of a drug. My neighbor told me years ago that when she checked the footage from her security cams outside her front house she found a guy coming into her yard picking her flowers and sticking them down the front of his underwear. He was never seen again, just once. Smelled kerosene in my chicken house. Not for first time, one morning. Reviewed cam footage. Good video of neighbor entering with kerosene can and pouring it on my birds. She hates me and my birds. Maybe just me. Kerosene can and pouring it on my birds. Should have called the police. No one takes kindly to miniature dinosaurs being abused. I have an Amazon ring and on Halloween night a black cat lay down on my walkway. The shadow made it look like a huge cat like a panther or something. Freaked me out until I zoomed in to see it was just a little black kitty. It showed its true form. Obligatory not my story. Sorry. My brother got a new security camera and he was having trouble sleeping. He lives in an apartment building with a couple other people in the hallway. He kept waking up to a person trying to open his door in the middle of the night. He eventually found out it was a neighbor who got drunk a lot and was trying to get into the wrong apartment. The neighbor eventually went away. A couple weeks later he came home and there were a bunch of cops outside of his apartment. Turns out that his other neighbor, who had also gotten harassed by this guy in the middle of the night, had murdered the guy who kept knocking on my brother's door. My brother caught it all on his security camera. He turned it over to the police, and the neighbor got arrested and went to jail. That escalated quickly. Saw a woman talking to herself stealing my trash. I was so confused the week I moved in because every day I threw trash away my can was empty and I kept convincing myself I was just losing it. Finally got my cameras up and realized what was happening. Turns out the lady went to every can up and down multiple streets every night taking and throwing away trash. Found out she had some mental health issues and lived around the corner. Moved the cans to the backyard instead of the side of the house after all that. That's how identity theft happens. Check your credit reports. Not asleep but we were eating breakfast. There is a school down the street from our house. It's literally 2 houses down. Anyways, in the mornings there's lots of traffic and children with their parents to school. They walk past our house nearly every day and we never thought anything of it. Anyways, one day there was a kid who we caught on the security camera running and there was some guy chasing after him. Turns out he was trying to kidnap the kid and we had it on tape. The kid got to the school and told his teacher and police came and asked to see what we recorded via camera. Crap's crazy. Watch your kids. I came home from work one day and could see prints in the snow going up our driveway, then veering left into a field by our house and eventually leading to the main road. We were the only house on a long street. I could tell the prints weren't too recent, as some fresh snow had settled into them. I checked the security cameras, starting at midnight and fast forwarding through the early morning hours, convinced I would catch on camera the weirdo wandering our property and trying to break in and murder us. After a half an hour of staring at the screen, the perpetrator finally came into view. A horse from the field across the street had broken out and meandered through our yard and field by our house at around 5 AM. The build-up was terrifying. The result of the prints was adorable and hilarious. Doorbell cam went off at 3 AM. Flipped to the live view and there was a deer standing in my yard staring directly at the camera. Close enough that the camera thought it was a person at the door. Deer stood there for a solid minute just not moving. The eyes had that creepy night vision look so it was extra weird. And then the deer took a huge crap while maintaining eye contact with the camera and that kinda ruined the mood. A doe, a deer, a pooping deer. A random guy helped himself to my backyard. Thinking he was a thief I was already picking my phone to call the non-emergency police line only to look back at my tablet and see him moving my pot plants. Only my pot plants. Some of which are very heavy. He even stepped back a couple of times as if to survey his handiwork. Once he was seemingly happy with their new arrangement he then left the same way he came. I have never seen this man before in my life. WTF. Neighbors have security cameras that caught 2 people outfitted to look like Jehovah's Witness reps that were actually armed thieves. The pair did several burglaries in the area before reports to the police from neighbors caught them in the act. P.S. Enjoy your cake day, OP. One night a bunch of cars in our neighbor were broken into, including my son's. We checked our security cameras and saw the guy going through my son's car and then he walked over to my neighbor's house and up onto their back deck and stared through their French doors for about 15 minutes before leaving. My parents live on an L-shaped large piece of property with a dirt road that runs along the inside corner of the L. My dad walked out of the house very early one morning on his way to work and sees someone pull off the dirt road onto the opposite end of their property. Before he can get in his truck to investigate, the trespassers peel out and take off the opposite direction and he can't catch them. He goes to work suspecting poachers and gets a trail camera to attach to a tall tower he built as a lookout point deer stand. He goes out once a week to swap SD cards and batteries. Never sees much more than animals and the occasional car on the dirt road. This goes on for months and everyone kinda forgets about it. My grandfather goes in the hospital for heart surgery, but never leaves the hospital. dying after not recovering from a coma after surgery. Things start to settle down after my grandfather's death and I'm over to work on a computer for my mom. Dad goes and trades cards and batteries and brings the full one back. Part of the issues they had was reading SD cards. So I load the card and flip through the several hundred pictures. I get bored and leave my mom to it. She's visibly upset and looks at my dad and says, "Do you know who that is?" He looks, says, "It looks like your dad." I look, and it does definitely look like him. Very distinctive clothing and hat, but missing his dog and gun that never left his side when in the woods. He'd been dead for over a month at the time and the cards had been changed several times since. There was only a single picture, and there would have been no way to get to where this person was without having triggered the camera several times along the way. He had not been out to their property in a few years, let alone to that part of their property. I still have no explanation for it. One last goodbye from old grandpa. There has been a string of car break-ins in our neighborhood lately. We have had cameras up for a couple of years now, so we checked the footage. Unfortunately, while we have the wannabe thieves on camera, there was nothing worth stealing in either mine or my husband's car. We have no idea who they are. The cops can't do much without an ID. One of them is wearing very distinctive shoes, though, so we have been on the lookout for an unusual pair of Nikes and who might be wearing them. Sucks when you can only watch someone break into your car. I know it's a little off topic, but we did also have a funny one we caught on camera. Our neighbor is a huge douche who can't handle his drink. He likes to listen to crappy mariachi music all night and into the early morning, which wouldn't be such a problem on the weekend. But he likes to do it on a Wednesday night. It really is a pain in the butt when you have to go to work in the morning. Our neighbor called the cops on him and we got to watch him get pepper sprayed in the face on camera. It was hilarious. Wasn't exactly while I was asleep since my dad woke me up, but I live on a cul-de-sac and my dad told me to grab a weapon and come watch the cameras. The cul-de-sac was full of at least 8 police cars with the lights on and more were parking up the street and running into the neighborhood. We didn't know WTF was going on, but if a fleeing criminal tried to break into our house to hide, we wanted to be ready. Turns out some homeless dude lived in the woods behind my house and stole some jewelry from a Walmart about 15 minutes from my place. Dude, I live in a cul-de-sac. 2 police have come 3 times. Once for a drug bust, once cause a murderer climbed over my neighbor's gate into their backyard, and another for I think a guy who was a thief. I don't remember the last one too well. One night the camera on the front, facing to the road, captured a white car that pulled up near the gate, backed onto the road, drove a few steps ahead, then backwards, then forwards, switched lights off, then on, then fog lights on, special lights in Europe, don't know if they are around the world, fog light off, forward, backward, lights off, lights on, and drove off. Never saw that car again. The ID was not even from the country I am living in. Sounds like someone trying to replicate an intermittent electrical issue with their car. Source: have done dumb crap like this to try and figure out intermittent electrical issues with my car. Near midnight my car alarm was triggered. 4 weeks, never could find who did it. So I put up a cameras up to see what happened. 3 nights of not getting anything. I pee myself when I found a raccoon versus squirrel wrestling match at my front door. I saw an animal near my house. It turned around and saw something outside of the camera's view and looked scared or something, and when it reached the edge of the screen and looked like something grabbed it, never came back. Could you see a hand or was it too far out of shot? Woke up one day to a very weird feeling. I decided to check the cameras. This was around a month ago. BTW. Ended up seeing 3 dudes in black who were roaming around my house at around 2 AM. Then they just left. I was very nervous for a couple of days after and still am a little bit. I have no idea what they were doing. Not me, but my dad looked through his camera once and saw a stuffed animal placed right in front of the camera. We found out it was my mom playing a joke on him. Oh, I'm definitely doing this to my mom. That's hilarious. The guy wearing dark clothes with a hood over his face who walked up to our fence at 3 AM. Saw the beware of dog sign and the fake security cameras we have out to hide the ones we really have. Who then proceeded to get down and half crouch, crawl through our gate and into our yard in an attempt to not be seen by the fake cameras, and got halfway to our door before my sweet good boy went total hellhound and raced to the front door from our bedroom to inform us someone was out there. As soon as the guy heard the dog and saw the lights in our place come on, he just got up and straight ran through the gate and down the street. We filed a complaint with the cops. Nothing ever came of it. He definitely was testing if we really had a dog or a security system in place, and that just freaked the heck out of me. We went and got motion activated lights after that as an added deterrent. Good boy got a steak dinner the next night. He's damned lucky I didn't open the door or he'd have gotten mauled and or worse. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.